Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to continue our exploration of how to build engaging lessons in Lynx, and we're going to learn how to reorder objects and set some of them to be editable during the presentation, and how to choose objects that are not editable by students. So let's take a quick look here at an example. I'm going to go to my next page here. And here I have continued the weathering lesson from my previous video. And in this example, we are asking students to search behind the most weathered rock in this picture. So in order to advance to the next page in the lesson, they do need to grab onto some of this clip art and move it aside to see if it's the correct answer. And you can see I can move these rocks, but I'm not able to select the image or any of the text or any other things on the page other than what I want students to choose. So here's the most weathered rock, and we're going to click on the little blue text there to move on to the next page. Okay, let's learn how to build that. I'm going to turn off presentation mode here, and we're back to our regular editing screen, the environment you might be familiar with here. Now, quickly, we're going to learn how to reorder objects. So how do we stack things on top of each other, obscuring content behind other things in order to create the lesson that best gets our point across? And the way that we do that is this little icon here that appears when you click on an object. It looks like a solid square inside of a dotted square, and this menu is going to have some controls in it for stacking. So with that, you can move objects forwards and backwards on the screen. So let me show you what I mean here. You might recognize this from my previous video. This is the same planets lesson that we built last time, and I'm going to start adding some text to my screen here. So let me go ahead and select my text tool and click it again. You will see I have 3 options here, and I can configure those options in that settings gear if I want. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is choose a title here. And I'm just going to draw a little place for it up here on the screen. And I can go ahead and type my title. You'll notice it's very hard to see against those stars. So what I'm going to do is select it with my mouse and choose a different text color. And then maybe just expand my text box a little bit more. Okay, so now I have an object on screen. If I click on it here, you'll notice that solid square inside the dotted square. If I click on it here, I can actually choose to send this text backwards or forwards on my screen. And you won't notice anything until you overlap with other objects. Looks like the text is one layer behind Mars, but still on top of Venus and Earth. Now that doesn't matter so much for something like a title, but what if we wanted to obscure the planet Earth with a box, and students had to move it once they had correctly predicted that planet Earth was in between Venus and Mars? So to do that, we might choose our plus button down here and select perhaps the insert shape option here. And how about we choose a circle and draw a nice big circle that is going to cover up the planet Earth. There we go. And if I click on it, and I choose that solid square inside the dotted square, you can see how I can change the order of this object in order to make sure that it obscures the pictures that I want. The other thing that I could do here is add some titles. So each of these planets can be labeled. And again, I'm going to have to change my text color to white and copy and paste my titles here. Okay, so now that I have things labeled, it might be a good idea to hide this title underneath this blank circle that I've created, except it's on top. So in order to change that, I go to my Arrange menu here and just drop it down so it is obscured behind that object. And now if I move it out of the way, you'll be able to see the label hiding behind. Perfect. Let's try one more thing here, and that is keeping objects editable on screen. So when you're presenting a lesson, sometimes you want things to be movable, like that object that we just moved out of the way in the last slide. But you also might want some things to stay in place. For example, the planets and the labels associated with them, we'd really rather they stay in place. So in order to do that, right next to that Arrange menu that we were just using, you're going to click on the 3 dots and select Editable while presenting. And then when you're in presentation mode, only the things that you have chosen to be editable can be moved. So for this object, I'm going to click on it and then choose those 3 dots over here on the edge and make sure that that black circle is editable. Now everything else is not editable. You can see this one's not glowing here, but if I compare, this one is glowing blue to signify that that's editable. And this only takes effect if you start presentation mode. So this is an option. If you remember from an earlier video in this training series, this is when you're going to want to use presentation mode. So if I begin presenting here, I can no longer change my title. I can no longer move these planets. All I can move on screen is this circle. So that is a very handy tool to keep around. Just remember that everything on screen that you want students to be able to interact with, you'll have to choose editable. You can of course select multiple objects at a time, but anything that you don't specifically say should be editable is going to be locked on the screen when you begin presentation mode.